They fined me $75,000 for building on land I own, because one woman didn't get her way. She wanted my property for her luxury retreat, and when I beat her to it, she declared war. What followed? Drones, lies, bulldozers, and the most insane HOA battle you've ever seen. I knew it the moment I stepped onto that hillside plot. This was it, my future. The land wasn't just beautiful, it was a damn canvas. Rolling green inclines framed by old oaks on one side and a panoramic lake view on the other. When the wind blew just right, you could smell pine and earth and water. A mix that whispered peace, ownership, and something primal. This wasn't just land. It was mine. I bought it outright. No mortgage, no debt. It wasn't part of any HOA, thank God. I'd had enough of neighborhood drama in the past. Grown adults arguing over mailbox colors and fence height like it was the goddamn Supreme Court. Never again. This time it was me, my land, and the house I had dreamed about since I was in my 20s. I had the plans already drawn. A modern farmhouse with steel and wood accents, huge sliding glass walls, an infinity-edge pool overlooking the lake, a Japanese-style garden with a koi pond, and for the kids a treehouse worthy of a movie set, rope bridge, lookout tower, everything. I wasn't building a house, I was creating a place worth passing down. The permits, all cleared through the county, soil tests, passed, utilities, scheduled. I did it all by the book, even though I didn't technically have to. It just felt cleaner that way. Safer. Maybe that's the architect in me, obsessed with lines, structure, balance. I wasn't here to cut corners, I was here to build. First few weeks were perfect. Excavation crews came in, laid out the footprint, dug for the foundation. Every day I'd drive up with coffee and just watch the progress like a kid with a Lego set. My kids would run around the lot yelling out where they wanted the trampoline or arguing over who got the top bunk in the treehouse. We were building something real together. Then on a Monday morning that started off like any other, she showed up. A silver SUV pulled up, tires crunching gravel like it owned the place. Out stepped a woman in her 50s with the kind of face that said she ran shit, and a haircut that confirmed it. Platinum blonde bob, sunglasses bigger than her ego, clipboard in hand. I didn't know it then, but I should have turned and run. She strutted right past the front loader like she belonged there, heels stabbing into the mud. No hello, no intro, just, "Who gave you approval for this structure?" I blinked. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Karen Miller, president of the Lakeview Heights HOA. She flashed a badge like she was with the FBI. "This construction is not compliant with community visual guidelines, and the tree structure violates safety perimeter regulations for shared zones." I stared at her like she'd just recited the ingredients of dog food in Latin. "Shared what now?" She motioned vaguely toward my land, as if her presence alone made it communal. "This lot is visible from multiple properties under HOA governance. Any structure erected here must be reviewed and approved by our design committee." No, see," I said, already feeling my pulse tighten. "This land isn't part of your HOA. It was never zoned into your development. I checked that before I bought it. I made damn sure." Karen's mouth twitched. "That may be what you think, but adjacency requires consideration, especially when the aesthetics of your build will impact the property values of our community." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Lady, with all due respect, I could build a neon pink circus tent here with dancing goats and a hot tub in the driveway, and there's nothing your HOA can say about it. This land is private, independent, and under county, not HOA oversight." Her eyes narrowed to slits. "We'll see about that." And she left. No further threats, no calls to the county, Just that ominous final line like a villain in a low-budget thriller. I told myself she was just blowing smoke. There's always one in every neighborhood, right? Someone who thinks they own more than they do. The next day, a stack of building materials was mysteriously rerouted and delayed. No one could say why. The county inspector called to say someone had anonymously reported my construction as unauthorized activity. And then, a week later, I found a stop work notice pinned to my fencing post, unsigned and completely unofficial. I called the county. They confirmed no such notice had been issued. Some Karen brand theatrics, no doubt. But the cherry on top came a few days later. A bright white envelope arrived by certified mail. Inside was a letterhead from the Lakeview Heights HOA. It claimed I was in violation of Section 4, Article 9 of their community guidelines and demanded immediate cessation of all construction activities along with a $75,000 fine for non-compliant structure development. $75,000 for building a illegal house on my own damn land. That was when I realized something. This wasn't about rules. This wasn't about aesthetics or property values. This was personal. Karen didn't just want control. She wanted this land. And she was pissed she didn't get it. I stood in the middle of my property, letter in one hand, looking out over the foundation, the piles of lumber, the outlines of my family's future. This woman had no idea what kind of fight she'd just picked. The week after I got the HOA's fake fine letter was a crash course in suburban guerrilla warfare. At first I tried to play it cool. I mean, who the hell fines someone for $75,000 without jurisdiction? That was like a neighbor handing you a parking ticket for using your own driveway. I figured the absurdity would collapse under its own weight. I was wrong. 2 days after the letter arrived, my lumber delivery was mysteriously canceled mid-route. The driver called me from a gas station, confused and pissed. Said the drop-off address doesn't exist anymore, he told me. Dispatcher got flagged by some system. Look, man, I don't know what's going on, but I can't get paid to deliver to a blacklisted zone. Blacklisted. Like I was running a cartel up here instead of building a house with a swing set. I spent the next day on the phone with the county trying to verify that my address was still my address. Spoiler, it was. Then I started calling around just to confirm something I already suspected. Yep. Every company I'd hired had been contacted anonymously with concerns about permits, safety, even environmental violations. It was like someone was putting together a pressure campaign, hoping I'd fold. I pictured Karen in her white SUV parked in her oversized garage full of HOA bylaws and passive-aggressive yard signs, printing out complaint forms with the glee of a 6-year-old with a label maker. That same night, I came home to find a flyer zip-tied to my temporary fence. Unapproved structure detected. Community integrity at risk. It was signed only as concerned citizens of Lakeview Heights. Concerned, my ass. Then came the drones. Yeah. Drones. Little whirring bastards started hovering around my lot, especially in the mornings when the crews showed up. At first, we laughed it off. Hey, maybe Karen's filming a Netflix doc on people with backbones. But it didn't stop. One drone actually dipped so low it nearly clipped one of the contractors. That guy packed up and left, muttering something about psycho neighborhoods and rich white women with too much time. I set up motion cameras, caught license plates, got footage of Karen's SUV making slow, deliberate passes by the site. And then, at 3 in the morning, I caught someone walking along the edge of the property, flashlight in hand, poking around the foundation. Too far to ID, but the body language? Classic Karen. Confident, entitled, and oblivious to boundaries. I brought all of this to my lawyer, Sandra Martinez. Sharp as hell, calm under fire, and exactly the kind of person you wanted when someone was trying to dismantle your life with a clipboard and a superiority complex. She took one look at the fake fine letter and said, "They're not just bluffing. This is organized harassment, and if she's dragging the HOA into it, we need to push back hard." We filed a cease and desist, citing lack of jurisdiction, and sent a formal demand to the HOA to back off or face legal consequences. But of course, Karen wasn't done. That weekend, my daughter and I were planting saplings near the back of the lot, the area we'd mapped out for the garden. She was telling me how she wanted to paint the treehouse galaxy colors, like a nebula with glitter stars, when a loud diesel engine cut through the quiet. We turned to see a mom bulldozer coming up the access road. I stepped in front of it, hand raised, heart punching my ribs. The driver stopped a few feet from me and leaned out. "You Tom Rivers?" "Yeah. Got a work order from Lakeview HOA. Supposed to reclaim misused space and clear unapproved landscaping." He held up a clipboard like it was a damn eviction notice. I laughed. "This land isn't even in their jurisdiction." He squinted. "Look, man, I don't want trouble. I'm just here to clear what they marked on the map." "You try and roll that thing onto my property," I said, pointing at his treads. "And you're going to be replacing every single blade of grass with a toothbrush." He hesitated. I walked right up to the cab, pulled my phone, and started recording. That did the trick. The guy backed up, muttering something about not getting paid enough for lawsuits. I called the sheriff's department, filed a trespassing complaint, and gave them the drone footage, the fake letters, and everything else I had. The deputy was sympathetic but cautious. "These HOA types can get real creative," he said. "But they're usually careful. This one," he nodded at Karen's name on the file, "seems like she's getting sloppy." That night I got a voicemail from a blocked number. No introduction, just Karen's voice trying to sound calm but with that edge of fury beneath the surface. "You could have worked with us, you could have been reasonable, but no. You had to make it difficult. Fine. We'll escalate this." I replayed it twice, then forwarded it to Sandra. We weren't in passive-aggressive suburbia anymore. This was war. I knew it was only a matter of time before things exploded. Karen was testing boundaries the way a velociraptor tested electric fences, and sooner or later she was going to find a weak spot. But what she didn't know was that I'd reinforced every inch of mine. The bulldozer incident lit a fire under me. I wasn't just pissed, I was done playing defense. Sandra agreed. "It's time to stop reacting," she said. "Let's go on record. Let's hit back." First, we filed an official harassment complaint with the county. Then we sent a certified letter to the HOA, citing their president, not by name, but come on, for unlawful interference with private development outside of HOA jurisdiction. The documents attached included my deed, GIS zoning maps, property tax records, drone footage, and enough legal jargon to give a law student a nosebleed. We CC'd the city planning department, county commissioner's office, and the sheriff. No more whisper campaigns. This was front-page level heat. Karen didn't like that. 3 days later, a police cruiser rolled up to my property just as I was reviewing truss layouts with the construction foreman. 2 officers stepped out, one tall, one not, both looking like they weren't exactly thrilled to be there. "You Tom Rivers?" the tall one asked. "Yep. What's this about?" "Got a call from the Lakeview HOA. They reported unauthorized structures, potential environmental violations, and unsafe working conditions. Said you were erecting buildings without permits." I didn't even flinch. I'd been waiting for this. "I have permits for everything. Want to see them?" I pulled out the thick folder I'd started carrying around like a paranoid Boy Scout. Stamped, signed, triple-checked documents from every office this side of Sacramento. As I laid them out on the hood of my truck, the short officer muttered, "Jesus, this is more organized than my taxes." They scanned the papers, matched parcel numbers, and made a few calls. Then the tall one handed me back the folder and gave a quick nod. "You're clean. Sorry for the trouble, sir." Before leaving, he added, "Between you and me, HOA overreach is getting ridiculous out here. We get this kind of crap more and more." I thanked them, but the whole thing left a taste in my mouth like old batteries. HOA overreach? This wasn't overreach. This was an invasion. 2 hours later, Karen showed up. Not by accident. I could see the smug timing in her arrival, like she expected to find me handcuffed or crying into a bulldozer blade. Instead, she found me sipping cold water and tossing scraps to a crow that had taken to visiting the site. She rolled her window down. "So, all clear?" "Yup," I said, smiling like I'd just won the lottery. "Turns out doing things legally really works. Crazy, right?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "We'll see how long that lasts." Then she drove off without another word. The next morning, I noticed someone had left a dead squirrel nailed to my mailbox post. Real mature. I mean, if that was meant to scare me, I've seen scarier things in IKEA parking lots. Sandra, on the other hand, was fuming. "This is textbook intimidation. We need to document everything." So we did. I started logging every incident, photos, times, vehicle plates. Security cams caught HOA-affiliated vehicles driving by, stopping, pointing. Twice I caught someone in a reflective vest peeking over the construction fencing. And then, gold. One of my workers spotted a man with a clipboard snooping around my septic field and followed him. Turned out he was hired by the HOA to inspect site integrity without permission. I called the sheriff again. This time they took it seriously. A detective came out, took statements, reviewed footage, and said the magic words. "This is starting to look like a pattern of targeted harassment." He recommended that we install perimeter sensors and additional lighting. I went a step further. I put up a massive sign facing the Lakeview entrance. "Private property. Not affiliated with Lakeview HOA. Unauthorized access will be prosecuted." It looked like a war banner. The message was clear. "Get off my land." That night, my phone lit up with a new email. It was from Karen. No subject line. Just a PDF attachment. I opened it. A scanned document titled, "Official Notice of Lien, HOA Enforcement Action." Apparently, she was attempting to place a liens on my property for non-compliance with community standards. The number? $75,000. Again. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I sent it to Sandra. She responded in under 2 minutes. "This just crossed into illegal territory. It's time to take this woman down." When someone tries to slap an illegal lien on your property, they're not just poking the bear, they're dragging the whole damn forest into a courtroom. I wasn't angry anymore. I was cold, focused. The part of my brain that usually handled truss angles and foundation loads suddenly rerouted into legal warfare. And now that Karen had crossed the line into straight-up fraud, I had everything I needed to take this battle from petty to biblical. Sandra took point. The moment she saw the fake lien, she grinned like a shark in a kiddie pool. "She forged a lien on land her HOA has no jurisdiction over," she said. "That's attempted real estate fraud. You can't fake legal encumbrances on someone's title and not expect the courts to take your kneecaps." We filed a formal complaint with the county recorder's office. Within 48 hours, the lien was declared void and flagged as fraudulent. But we didn't stop there. Sandra launched an investigation into Karen's activities as HOA president. I honestly didn't expect anything to come from it. Maybe a few misfiled documents, some shady reimbursement forms. but what we found made my blood run cold and my fists clench. Turns out Karen had a plan for my land long before I bought it. She'd been lobbying the HOA board for over a year to purchase my parcel through a shell LLC she secretly controlled. Her plan? Turn it into a private lakeside retreat and rentable wellness center for Lakeview Heights' elite residents. Hot tubs, yoga domes, spa pods, the whole Silicon Valley dystopia. She'd even presented mock-ups at a closed HOA strategy meeting titled The Oasis Project. The only thing that stopped it? I bought the lot first, beat her by 2 weeks. She'd been in escrow negotiations when my offer went through. I never knew, never even saw her name on anything. But to her, I hadn't just bought land. I'd stolen her dream. And now she was determined to ruin mine. We gathered all this through a former HOA board member named Craig, a guy who looked like a tax attorney and smelled like guilt. He reached out anonymously at first, said he had concerns about what was happening with the board and wanted to meet in person. I bought him coffee at a dingy diner off Route 14. He showed up in sunglasses like we were trading state secrets. "She's unhinged," he said after the first sip. "It started as vision, you know? Luxury upgrade, community prestige, but when you got the lot..." He shook his head. "She lost it. Said you were a squatter. She's been using HOA funds to fund surveillance, drone rentals, even paid a private investigator to dig into your finances." "She what?" Craig nodded, apologetic. "She had your financials, job history, even tried to see if you had building violations in other counties. That little folder she always carried. It wasn't just for show." I thanked him, got his statement in writing, and handed it straight to Sandra. She added it to our growing folder, which by this point was thicker than a New York deli sandwich. Now we had enough to go nuclear. Sandra filed a multi-pronged civil lawsuit against Karen and the HOA. Charges included harassment, attempted real estate fraud, defamation, abuse of power, and unlawful surveillance. We also filed for injunctive relief to block further HOA interference, and just for good measure, a claim for damages. $1 million. Oh, and we sent copies of the complaint to local media, the state HOA oversight committee, and a handful of city council members. If Karen thought she could wage a private war, I was happy to make it public. Within days, the fallout began. The HOA board imploded. 2 members resigned within 48 hours. Karen called an emergency meeting that devolved into chaos. Someone leaked audio of her screaming, "You're all traitors," while someone else calmly read out HOA bylaws contradicting her actions. At the next city development hearing, Sandra and I showed up armed with binders. We presented evidence of ongoing harassment, forged documents, and illegal encroachments. Karen tried to interrupt us mid-presentation, but the chair shut her down. Hard. And then came my favorite moment. An officer from the Mau County Office of Zoning and Land Use stood up and said, "For the record, the property in question is fully compliant with all municipal codes and is not, nor has ever been, under the jurisdiction of the Lakeview Heights HOA. All actions taken by said HOA to enforce regulation on this parcel are invalid, and further interference will be subject to legal review." It was the bureaucratic equivalent of dropping a mic. Karen stood at the back of the room, arms folded, jaw clenched, eyes burning. She didn't speak. Not that it mattered. The damage was done. The truth was out, and people were starting to turn on her. The final nail came in the form of a certified letter. It was from the county district attorney's office. They were opening a formal investigation into Karen Miller for attempted property fraud. Courtrooms smell like sweat, printer ink, and nerves. The wood is polished, the flags hang straight, but no one's really at peace in there. Not the lawyers, not the bailiffs, and definitely not the woman sitting 2 tables away from me, arms crossed so tight I thought she might snap in half. Karen Miller. Her hair wasn't quite as crisp now, her trademark bob looking like it had been ironed in a panic. Her jaw twitched every few seconds. She wouldn't look at me, not directly. Not yet. Across from her sat her attorney, some high-priced real estate litigator named Clay something, who looked like he charged by the syllable. He shuffled papers, adjusted his tie every 5 minutes, and whispered things to Karen like, "Don't react no matter what they say." Sandra, my attorney, looked calm as ever. She had 3 neat stacks of documents, tabs color-coded like she was about to take the bar again for fun. I asked her earlier if she was nervous. She just said no. But I hope she is. The judge entered. Honorable Ruth Harrison, mid-60s, stern, sharp eyes that could see through a polished lie from across the state line. She banged the gavel and got straight to it. Case number 1804, Rivers versus Lakeview Heights Homeowners Association and Karen Miller in her capacity as HOA president. Plaintiff alleges unlawful harassment, fraud, defamation, and attempted real estate lien under false authority. Defendant responds with denial of jurisdictional overreach. Sandra rose like a conductor stepping onto the podium. "Your Honor," she began, "my client, Mr. Rivers, bought and owns land fully outside of the Lakeview Heights HOA. We are not here today to argue taste or style nor neighborly disagreements. We are here because a woman attempted to hijack my client's legal rights, fabricated a lien, weaponized an HOA, and broke the law." Then she dropped the first bomb. She handed over a printed email, dated 6 months prior, from Karen to the HOA board, outlining her Oasis project. The language was clear. Her vision for turning my land into an exclusive wellness retreat, and her frustration that I snatched it out from under her. Karen visibly flinched. Her lawyer paled. But we weren't done. Sandra moved on to drone footage, photos, the fake stop work notices, the bulldozer that nearly flattened my foundation, the voicemail Karen left saying, "We'll escalate this." Then Craig's signed affidavit detailing internal HOA corruption, Karen's misuse of funds, and her campaign to sabotage me. The best part? A financial report showing she spent over $32,000 of HOA money on surveillance and legal fees related to my property. Clay, Karen's lawyer, finally stood up and tried to claim she was acting in the best interest of the community. She believed mistakenly that the land would eventually fall under HOA jurisdiction. She admits her methods were flawed, but her intentions were civic, not malicious. Sandra didn't even blink. "Intentions don't authorize fraud, Your Honor." Then the judge turned to Karen. "Ms. Miller, do you deny placing a lien on property your HOA had no legal control over?" Karen looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. "I was advised it was within community rights." "By whom?" She hesitated. "Well, I assumed—" Judge Harrison slammed that gavel so hard the whole room jumped. "Ms. Miller, let me be clear. You placed a fraudulent lien. You trespassed. You hired unauthorized contractors to enter private land. You misused HOA funds. This is not a misunderstanding. This is systemic abuse of power." Karen opened her mouth, but the judge raised a hand. "I am not finished." The courtroom went so quiet you could have heard a termite sneeze. "I find in favor of Mr. Rivers on all counts. Damages of $1 million are to be paid by the HOA with personal liability of $200,000 unassigned to Ms. Miller." Karen let out a sharp, almost choking laugh. "You people are unbelievable." She stood up suddenly, eyes wide and manic, voice rising. "I built this neighborhood. I held this place together. And now you're all clapping for him? For him? He came in, built some monstrosity, and ruined everything we worked for." A murmur started in the courtroom. Some folks were shifting uncomfortably, but most looked away, ashamed maybe. Others just stared coldly. Karen's voice cracked. "You're all ungrateful, every single one of you. I gave you order, structure. Without me, this place will fall apart." Two bailiffs moved toward her. She turned back to the judge. "You're punishing me for doing what none of them had the guts to do." Judge Harrison nodded once. "Ms. Miller, in addition to financial penalties, you are hereby sentenced to 2 years in county jail for attempted fraud and unlawful interference in private property." Karen froze. The room did too. Then she started screaming. "You can't do this. You can't jail me. I'm the president. I was trying to help." The bailiffs grabbed her arms and began to escort her out. Her heels scraped against the floor as she fought to stay in the room. "You're all going to regret this," she shrieked. "You'll see. You'll be begging me to come back." As the heavy door closed behind her, it felt like a gust of clean air swept through the room. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. The war was over. The day after the trial, I drove out to the land before sunrise. No crews, no contractors, just me. A thermos of black coffee and the silence of a place that no longer felt threatened. The air was different. No tension, no watching my back for a clipboard in a Lexus. Just the wind coming off the lake and the first light spilling over the hills. I stood where the house would soon finish rising, boots planted deep in the gravel, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was trespassing on my own dream. By the end of the week, the contractors were back, half of them shaking my hand like I'd just pulled off a miracle. One guy, Miguel, brought his teenage son just to see the guy who sued an HOA and won. I told him it wasn't a miracle. It was just standing your ground. We rebuilt everything that had been delayed. The foundation was reinforced. The deck went up in record time. The pool was poured and the treehouse, it rose like a fortress. My kids helped stain the railing, giggling the whole time about how it looked like something out of a video game, only real. Neighbors started dropping by, first one or two, then more. Some brought pies. One guy brought a 6-pack and just said, "Man, we were waiting for someone to do what you did." Turns out Karen's reign of control had run deeper than I knew. She'd fined people for things like decorative clutter, forced a family to repaint their house 3 times because the beige was too warm, and once tried to ban solar panels for being visually aggressive. A group of residents called for an emergency HOA board meeting. This time, I wasn't the one being ambushed. They voted, unanimously, to remove Karen permanently from the board, not just suspended, erased. The new president, a retired nurse named Donna, came to my lot in person, nervous as hell, holding a folded-up letter. "We wanted to give you this," she said. "An official apology from the HOA. We're rewriting the bylaws, removing enforcement authority from the board without community vote. We don't want another Karen." I read it. It was short, honest, signed by every board member. "You could have ignored us," Dana added, "but you didn't, and it made the rest of us realize we've been sleepwalking." I told her I didn't do it for them. I did it because I had no other choice. But yeah, I was glad they finally woke up. That month, news of the case spread like wildfire. HOA watchdog blogs picked it up. Then a local station did a segment titled, "The Man Who Took on the HOA and Won." After that, it snowballed. National coverage, interviews, podcasts. My inbox was a mess. People from all over the country were reaching out with their own horror stories. One guy in Nevada had been fined for a hammock. A woman in Florida had been told her wheelchair ramp was aesthetic pollution. I started getting messages that didn't even ask for advice, just thank yous, like maybe somehow my fight gave them permission to start theirs. I got invited to a panel about HOA reform. I went, sat next to a city planner, a lawyer, and a guy who looked like he'd survived 3 cults and a timeshare in Arizona. I told my story. People took notes. I don't know if it'll change much, but maybe it planted something. Back home, I focused on finishing the house. We moved in midsummer. No ceremony, no grand speech, just boxes, pizza on the floor, kids running barefoot from room to room yelling about who gets what closet. My daughter staked claim on the treehouse first. My son decided the guest room was now his command center. My wife? She just stood at the back deck, wine in hand, eyes wet, whispering, "We actually did it." Yeah, we did. And right at that moment, as the sun slid over the edge of the lake, I realized something. The house wasn't the victory. Living in it was. 3 months after we moved in, something strange happened. A letter arrived in the mail. No return address, no HOA logo, just my name, handwritten in cursive that looked like it belonged to a woman who once terrified real estate agents for sport. I opened it on the porch, coffee in hand, fully expecting it to be one last legal booby trap. But inside it just said, "Enjoy it while it lasts." K, no threats, no lawsuit, just a sentence like a mosquito bite that itched for a few hours and then faded. I laughed, out loud. I think even the squirrels paused to judge me. Karen was gone, literally. Moved out of Lakeview Heights entirely, sold her house quietly, and disappeared to somewhere in Arizona. Probably trying to rule over a golf course HOA full of retirees too sunburned to resist. Rumor had it she tried to run for a local zoning board there and was shut down after someone dug up the court records from my trial. I may or may not have sent that link myself. Who's to say? Meanwhile, life moved on. The kids were thriving. My daughter started painting galaxy murals inside the treehouse, and my son planted a rogue corn patch just to prove he could grow something without the HOA screaming about symmetry. It worked, sort of. We got 3 cobs and a raccoon problem, but he declared it a victory. One Sunday, I hosted a cookout, open invite to the whole neighborhood. About 30 people showed up. Dana brought a peach pie. Craig, the ex-HOA guy who'd helped bring Karen down, showed up with a 6-pack and an awkward, "Hey, sorry I didn't grow a spine earlier." We laughed it off. The new HOA board had rebranded entirely. They weren't just reformed, they were reborn. Monthly meetings now included actual public input, and people actually showed up. They even hosted a Halloween decoration contest without issuing a single citation. Progress. At the cookout, someone asked me if I missed the drama. I took a bite of brisket, considered it, then said, "I miss the adrenaline, not the crazy." Sandra, who had shown up with her girlfriend and a bottle of wine, raised a glass. "To legally approved chaos," she said. "To not going to prison," I added. Everyone laughed. Later that evening, after the grills were cold and the kids were sticky with marshmallow goo, I walked out to the treehouse and climbed up to the top level. My daughter had strung fairy lights everywhere. It looked like something out of a dream. I could see the whole property from up there. The lake shimmered. The wind was calm. It didn't feel like a victory anymore. It felt like home. Just before going back inside, I spotted something nailed to the very edge of the treehouse railing. A small, hand-painted wooden plaque. My daughter had carved it, apparently, and burned the letters into it herself. It read, "No Karens allowed." Fair enough.